Nobody in that courtroom was prepared for the sudden shift that turned a seemingly routine hearing into one of the most talked-about moments in recent celebrity family drama. What began as a standard legal proceeding quickly escalated when King Harris's girlfriend took the stand. She stood there visibly trembling, fighting to maintain her composure as she began to speak. But the moment her words started flowing, the atmosphere in the room transformed completely. The tone grew heavier, the energy shifted from procedural to profoundly personal, and the entire direction of the case appeared to pivot in real time. According to multiple accounts circulating from those familiar with the proceedings, she did not simply deliver dry testimony. Instead, she broke down emotionally, and when the tears came, she held nothing back. Her statements touched on King Harris directly and extended to implications involving his father, T.I., in ways that caught everyone off guard. This was no distant or impartial witness. She was someone intimately connected to the situation, someone who had been present during key private moments that the public had never glimpsed. Her proximity lent her words undeniable weight, turning what might have been routine evidence into something far more revealing. As she spoke, insiders described the courtroom falling into a profound silence. People stopped shifting in their seats. The usual rustle of papers and murmurs ceased. What she shared reportedly challenged the narrative that had been building in public discussions up to that point. Rather than reinforcing familiar versions of events, her account introduced contradictions, details that forced those listening to reevaluate assumptions about the relationships, the incidents, and the motivations at play. In a space designed for order and control, this unexpected candor created an electric tension, compelling everyone present to confront the possibility that the full story was more complex than previously understood. The intensity peaked during a specific exchange that witnesses still describe with a sense of awe. At one point in her emotional testimony, she turned her gaze directly toward King Harris. What she said in that moment remains partially unconfirmed in exact wording, but the consensus among those who were there is unanimous. It landed like a seismic shift. The room's energy changed palpably, moving from collective observation to something deeply intimate and confrontational. In a setting built on legal formality, such a raw, directed statement carried extraordinary power. It transformed the hearing from a matter of facts and procedures into a moment of personal reckoning. Adding another layer to the drama was T.I.'s presence. He sat watching and listening intently, and reports suggest his reaction differed from what many anticipated. Instead of the expected composure or defensiveness associated with a high-profile figure protecting family legacy, his demeanor reflected a complexity that has since fueled endless online speculation. People in the room noted the shift in his expression, interpreting it as surprise, concern, or perhaps a deeper acknowledgement of the stakes involved. The internet has since been abuzz, dissecting every possible interpretation. What precise words passed between them? Why did her composure crumble so completely? And how did her testimony manage to cast both King Harris and T.I. into an uncomfortable spotlight simultaneously? If even a fraction of the whispered details hold truth, this single hearing could ripple far beyond the immediate legal matter, amplifying existing family tensions into something much larger. To fully appreciate why this moment felt so explosive, it helps to step back and examine the underlying dynamics that set the stage long before anyone entered the courtroom. King Harris has long cultivated a distinctive public persona, bold, outspoken, and unapologetically confident. That same magnetic energy, which draws attention and support in certain circles, can also generate friction when personal relationships enter the mix. Strong personalities colliding under the glare of public scrutiny rarely remain uncomplicated. Emotions run high, expectations clash, and private disagreements that might otherwise resolve quietly can escalate when external pressures mount. King's girlfriend, by contrast, had largely remained out of the relentless spotlight that follows his family. She was not the one crafting headlines or courting viral moments. Yet according to those close to the situation, she was a consistent presence behind the scenes, observing, participating in, and bearing witness to events that never made it into public view. This insider perspective is precisely what made her eventual courtroom appearance so potent. When someone who has lived the unreported reality steps forward, their testimony carries the authenticity of lived experience rather than second-hand accounts. It moves beyond speculation into the realm of direct knowledge, which can reshape how a case is perceived. Beneath the surface, however, the relationship was reportedly more turbulent than outward appearances suggested. Tensions simmered, disagreements over expectations, differing views on how conflicts should be handled, and moments of misalignment that accumulated over time. None of this played out in public posts or dramatic announcements at first. These were private fractures, the kind that many couples navigate without fanfare. But in this instance, something shifted. An incident, details of which vary depending on the source, appears to have acted as a catalyst. What began as personal discord gradually edged into territory with legal implications. Conversations grew more charged, boundaries blurred, and what had been emotional territory started transforming into documented statements and potential evidence. This evolution marked a critical turning point. Once a situation crosses into legal proceedings, privacy evaporates. Emotions become part of the record, actions are scrutinized for patterns, and previously internal matters gain external significance. The hearing was no longer merely about resolving a dispute between individuals. It had become a forum where broader questions of accountability, truth, and family involvement converged. T.I.'s role in all of this adds significant depth. As a father with a storied career and a carefully guarded legacy in the entertainment world, he has often positioned himself as a guiding force for his children. In this case, sources indicate he was aware that tensions were escalating, even if he did not know every granular detail. His attendance at the hearing signaled more than passive interest. It reflected an understanding that the outcome could influence not just his son's immediate future, but the family's public narrative as well. Watching a loved one navigate serious legal and emotional terrain is never easy, particularly when the proceedings risk exposing vulnerabilities that extend beyond one relationship. What no one seemed to anticipate was the scale of the girlfriend's impact. Leading up to the hearing, expectations centered on standard testimony, concise answers, factual recitations, and a return to procedural normalcy. Instead, the emotional floodgates opened. She moved from measured responses into expansive explanations, referencing details that stretched beyond the immediate questions asked. This unscripted quality made the moment feel undeniably authentic. It was not a polished performance, but a raw outpouring that resonated precisely because it appeared unrehearsed. The build-up to her breakdown had subtle precursors, according to those reflecting on the events afterward. There were earlier signs, moments when she seemed weighed down by unspoken burdens, instances where her voice carried an edge of restraint, or pauses that hinted at something larger simmering beneath the surface. At the time, these were easily dismissed as natural nervousness in a high-stakes environment. In hindsight, they read like quiet warnings that the pressure was mounting and that a release was inevitable. When the breaking point arrived, it stemmed from a confluence of factors. Some observers attribute it primarily to accumulated emotional strain, the weight of prolonged silence finally becoming unbearable in the formal setting of the court. Others point to deeper frustration, a sense that certain accounts had been minimized, denied, or reframed in ways that did not align with her direct experiences. This clash of perspectives created a painful dissonance. When someone feels their reality is being overshadowed or contradicted, the urge to set the record straight can become overwhelming, especially under oath where truth is explicitly demanded. During the testimony, a notable transition occurred. What started as address to the court at large gradually narrowed. There came a pause, a change in her delivery, and then she spoke more directly to King Harris himself. This shift elevated the moment from legal testimony to something resembling a personal confrontation. It injected an intimacy into the proceedings that courts rarely accommodate so openly. The directness forced a recalibration. Suddenly, the focus was not only on facts but on relational truths, unresolved feelings, and the human cost of the conflicts involved. The aftermath has been a frenzy of analysis across social media and commentary circles. Viewers and listeners are piecing together fragments, debating motivations, and speculating on the long-term consequences for everyone involved. Questions abound. Was her breakdown a spontaneous release or the culmination of carefully weighed decisions? Did her words stem purely from pain, or did they also carry elements of accountability seeking? How will this testimony influence ongoing perceptions of King Harris's character and choices? And what does it mean for T.I., whose public image has long intertwined with themes of family strength and personal growth? The situation underscores broader truths about fame, relationships, and public scrutiny. When personal lives intersect with celebrity status, the boundaries between private and public dissolve rapidly. Moments that might remain contained within a household become amplified, dissected, and memorialized online. Strong personalities like King's, charismatic yet polarizing, can intensify these dynamics, turning everyday relational challenges into larger spectacles. Yet at the core, these are still human stories involving love, disappointment, loyalty, and the difficult process of confronting uncomfortable realities. T.I.'s involvement brings additional layers of legacy and expectation. As someone who has built a multifaceted career while navigating fatherhood in the spotlight, his reactions carry symbolic weight. The hearing highlighted the challenges of balancing protective instincts with the reality that adult children must face consequences and truths on their own terms. His presence served as a reminder that family bonds persist even amid conflict, though they may be tested in profoundly public ways. Ultimately, the courtroom moment stands out because it humanized a narrative that had previously circulated in more abstract or sensationalized terms. It reminded observers that behind the headlines, the social media exchanges, and the viral clips are real people experiencing real emotional turbulence. The girlfriend's decision to speak openly, despite visible distress, injected a dose of unfiltered honesty into proceedings that often prioritize restraint. As discussions continue, the focus remains on what comes next. Will this testimony prompt reevaluations, apologies, or further legal steps? Can the involved parties find paths toward resolution amid the heightened attention? Or will the contradictions she introduced deepen existing divides? The answers are not yet clear, but the hearing itself has already ensured that this chapter in the Harris family story will be remembered not for routine legal mechanics, but for the raw vulnerability that briefly overtook a structured environment. In many ways, the event serves as a case study in how proximity to conflict grants unique insight, and how that insight, once voiced, can disrupt carefully maintained narratives. It also illustrates the unpredictable power of emotion in settings designed to suppress it. When truth, or at least one person's deeply held version of it, breaks through the formalities, the results can be both unsettling and illuminating. The internet's fascination stems partly from the universality of the themes: strained relationships, parental disappointment, the struggle between public image and private reality, and the courage required to speak uncomfortable truths. While specifics remain partially shielded by the nature of court proceedings, the emotional resonance has transcended those limits. People see echoes of their own family complexities, magnified by fame but fundamentally relatable. As more details potentially emerge, the story will likely evolve. For now, the central image persists: a young woman standing in court, voice shaking at first, then gaining strength as she articulated experiences long held in silence. In that moment, the hearing ceased being merely procedural and became a turning point, not only for the case at hand, but perhaps for the personal journeys of everyone touched by it. The room may have returned to order eventually, but the shift she triggered continues to reverberate, prompting reflection on truth, accountability, and the messy intersections of love and legacy. This situation did not arise in isolation. It reflects years of public personas intersecting with private lives, of bold expressions clashing with familial expectations, and of the inevitable pressures that accompany growing up in the spotlight. King Harris's confident energy has always been part of his appeal, yet it also invites scrutiny when personal matters spill into public view. His girlfriend's role as a quiet observer, until that pivotal testimony highlights how those closest to the center often carry the heaviest unseen burdens. T.I.'s watchful presence added gravity, reminding all involved that family legacies are built not only on successes, but on how challenges are navigated. The hearing forced a momentary pause in the usual flow of celebrity news, inviting deeper consideration of the human elements that persist regardless of fame or fortune. Whether this marks the beginning of healing conversations or further complications remains to be seen. What is certain is that the girlfriend's emotional testimony left an indelible mark, compelling everyone, from those in the courtroom to distant observers, to grapple with questions of authenticity, consequence, and the courage it takes to voice what others might prefer to keep hidden. In the end, it was a reminder that even in the most controlled environments, raw human truth has the power to reshape everything. Here is the rewritten script as a continuous, flowing narrative without any timestamps or timeline references, expanded to approximately 2050 words. That single direct address to King Harris turned intensely personal and impossible to ignore. In that instant, the entire energy inside the courtroom transformed. What had already been emotionally charged suddenly carried even greater weight, because the moment she looked straight at him and spoke, the focus shifted beyond her own pain. People began paying close attention to another figure in the room, King's father, T.I. Up until then, T.I. had maintained a composed, watchful presence. He sat listening carefully, his expression steady and controlled, the way someone accustomed to high-pressure situations often appears. But according to multiple witnesses who were present, something changed in him the moment she directed those words at his son. It was not an outburst or anything that broke courtroom protocol. Instead, it was a subtle yet unmistakable shift, an almost imperceptible tightening in his posture, a change in his gaze, a quiet acknowledgement that the words had landed with real impact. For the first time during the hearing, his demeanor no longer projected pure control. It revealed that he, too, was being affected. That realization made the atmosphere even heavier, because now the testimony was touching not only King, but also the family patriarch whose public legacy had always been intertwined with themes of strength, guidance, and protection. This is precisely why the situation continues to generate so much attention. It is no longer simply about the details of a single incident or a troubled relationship. It has become about how one person's emotional truth rippled outward, touching everyone connected to it, and raising questions about what it might mean for all parties moving forward. What she said next pushed the hearing into entirely new territory. Until that point, the proceedings had still maintained a sense of structure. Questions were asked, answers were given, and the legal process followed its expected rhythm. But once she continued speaking, the dynamic changed dramatically. According to insiders familiar with the testimony, she did not retreat into short, cautious responses or attempt to regain her composure. Instead, she leaned further into the moment. She began describing specific situations, private conversations, and behind-the-scenes occurrences that, in her view, had been unfolding for some time. None of these details have been officially confirmed by the court, of course, and accounts still vary. Yet the consistency across multiple sources is striking. People repeatedly describe the same core idea. She moved from simply answering questions to actively exposing her version of events. And that version, they say, did not align with the narrative the public had been absorbing through headlines, social media clips, and earlier statements. She reportedly made it clear that what outsiders had seen represented only the surface layer. The real picture, according to her, was far more layered and complicated. The room reportedly fell into a deeper silence at that point. When someone close to the situation introduces a radically different account, uncertainty spreads quickly. Assumptions that had felt solid suddenly appear shaky. This was the moment many now describe as the true breaking point of the hearing, because it forced everyone present to confront the possibility that the story they thought they understood was incomplete. Even more serious was the way her testimony allegedly began connecting dots that extended beyond King alone. She brought up elements that, according to witnesses, indirectly involved T.I. as well. Exact wording remains unclear and subject to differing interpretations, but the collective impression was unmistakable. This was no longer framed as an isolated relationship issue between two young people. It now appeared bigger, deeper, and potentially more consequential for the entire family dynamic. The stakes had quietly risen. Just as it seemed her words were completely steering the moment, an unexpected pushback occurred. It was not loud or theatrical, but it was noticeable enough to interrupt the flow. Someone, accounts differ on precisely who, interjected in a way that attempted to regain control of the narrative. This created a brief back-and-forth exchange, the kind that rarely stays predictable once it begins. Tension thickened because now multiple perspectives were clashing in real time. Rather than backing down, she responded with even greater intention. According to one detailed account, her reply escalated the exchange further. It no longer felt like pure emotional release. It carried the weight of deliberate resolve. She appeared determined to say what she had come to say, regardless of the resistance. Moments like this are rare in formal legal settings, which is why they linger so powerfully in the memory of those who witnessed them. When raw intention meets structured proceedings, the outcome can reshape everything that follows. The intensity continued to build. Just when it felt as though the hearing had reached its emotional peak, she introduced another layer that no one seemed prepared for. Again, the precise words remain disputed across different reports, but the consensus is clear. She drew a direct connection between King Harris's actions and something larger, while also pulling T.I. further into the narrative in a way that felt unexpected. The moment that link was voiced, the atmosphere in the room shifted once more. What had been emotional testimony suddenly carried potential legal or reputational implications. People stopped merely listening. They began actively processing the possible consequences. Then came one of the most striking details reported by those present. After delivering that pivotal line, she stopped speaking. The silence that followed was described as almost as powerful as her words themselves. It felt final, as though she had delivered the message she needed to deliver and was now leaving the rest for others to confront. In that quiet pause, the weight of everything she had said seemed to settle over the courtroom. No immediate responses filled the air. Instead, there was a collective moment of realization. This situation had just grown significantly larger than anyone had anticipated when the hearing began. All eyes reportedly turned toward King Harris at that point. The question hanging in the air was how he would react to being addressed so directly and having his actions placed in a broader context. According to witnesses, his response defied expectations. Rather than pushing back immediately or showing visible anger, he remained still and quiet. He appeared to be processing the information in real time, absorbing the weight of what had just been said. That silence, paradoxically, created even greater tension. In high-stakes moments, people often anticipate an emotional reaction. When silence arrives instead, it can feel more unsettling because it leaves room for interpretation. While attention remained fixed on King, observers also began noticing changes in T.I.'s demeanor. His energy had subtly shifted. It no longer projected the same steady control he had shown earlier. Instead, witnesses described it as bordering on visible concern. For a figure known for maintaining composure under pressure, even a small change like this carried meaning. If someone of T.I.'s stature appeared affected, it suggested the testimony had struck at something genuinely significant. The moment refused to dissipate. According to another insider account, right after that heavy silence, a new element entered the proceedings that no one had seen coming. Instead of allowing the hearing to move on, a reference was made to potential evidence, something not yet fully presented or publicly released, but mentioned in a way that immediately heightened the seriousness of the situation. The focus abruptly moved from spoken words and emotional accounts to the realm of what could actually be verified and proven in court. That transition changed the entire temperature of the room. Up until then, debate could still revolve around differing interpretations and personal perspectives. But once the possibility of concrete evidence was introduced, the conversation gained sharper stakes. Emotions remained, yet they were now tethered to the prospect of documentation, records, or materials that could either support or challenge the claims being made. The atmosphere grew heavier, more focused, and undeniably more serious. Assumptions gave way to the colder reality of verification. Sources describe how the mention of this potential evidence caused an immediate reaction among those present. People sat up straighter. Whispers may have been suppressed, but the collective energy shifted palpably. Suddenly, earlier portions of the testimony took on added gravity. What had sounded like one person's painful recounting now felt potentially connected to something tangible and verifiable. The intentionality behind her words seemed even clearer. This escalation marked a turning point not only for the hearing itself, but for how the broader public would later perceive the entire situation. When testimony moves from the realm of emotion into the domain of evidence, the narrative gains a different kind of permanence. It becomes harder to dismiss as mere drama or family disagreement. Instead, it invites scrutiny at a deeper level, legal, personal, and reputational. The hearing had begun as a routine matter. By this stage, it had evolved into something far more complex, a public window into private fractures, unspoken resentments, and the difficult process of reconciling differing realities within a high-profile family. King Harris's bold, unfiltered public persona had always invited attention, now that same spotlight was illuminating the personal costs that can accompany such visibility. His girlfriend, previously a quieter figure in his orbit, had stepped into the center and refused to soften her account. T.I., long regarded as a stabilizing force, found himself visibly impacted by the unfolding events. What made the moment especially memorable was the way these different layers collided in real time: emotion, confrontation, subtle reactions from powerful figures, and the looming presence of potential evidence. It created a perfect storm of unpredictability inside a space that normally prizes order and restraint. As the hearing continued, the ripple effects of that sequence lingered. The silence after her key statements, King's measured non-reaction, T.I.'s quiet concern, and the introduction of evidentiary possibilities all combined to leave a lasting impression. People left the courtroom that day carrying the sense that something fundamental had shifted, not just in the legal case, but in the personal dynamics that had been quietly simmering for some time. In the days that followed, online discussions exploded as fragments of these accounts circulated. Viewers analyzed every possible meaning behind the reactions, debated the credibility of the different versions, and speculated about what the referenced evidence might eventually reveal. The story transcended simple celebrity gossip because it touched on universal themes: the pain of feeling unheard in a relationship, the weight of familial expectations, the difficulty of maintaining control when private truths surface publicly, and the courage required to speak directly even when the consequences are uncertain. Ultimately, that sequence of moments, her direct address, the expanded testimony, the pushback and response, the heavy silence, and the pivot toward evidence, crystallized why this hearing is being remembered as a turning point. It exposed the gap between curated public images and the messier realities underneath. It showed how one person's decision to stop holding back can force everyone else to confront uncomfortable questions. And it demonstrated that even in carefully controlled environments, human emotion and unresolved truth have the power to reshape the narrative in profound and lasting ways. The full impact of what unfolded may not be known for some time, as legal proceedings often move slowly and carefully. Yet the emotional and relational stakes have already been raised. For King Harris, the challenge now involves processing being confronted so openly in such a public forum. For T.I., it means navigating the role of father and public figure when family matters spill into the spotlight. For the young woman at the center of the testimony, it represents a moment of release that came at significant personal cost. Whatever happens next, the courtroom that day witnessed something rare, a genuine crack in the usual armor of celebrity and family privacy. In that crack, a more complicated, more human story emerged, one that continues to resonate because it reminds us that behind every headline, every viral clip, and every polished image are real people grappling with real consequences, real pain, and the difficult search for truth. Then came the twist that caught many off guard. Just as this new narrative began spreading and gaining traction, an unexpected silence descended over all the key figures involved. King Harris went quiet. His girlfriend offered no further public comments. T.I. remained noticeably silent as well. There were no clarifying statements, no attempts to regain control of the story, and no visible efforts to address the swirling speculation. This collective withdrawal felt unusual after an event of such magnitude. When something this significant occurs in the public eye, most people in similar positions feel compelled to speak out, to defend their side or provide context. The decision to remain silent instead suggests intentional restraint. It could mean they are currently unable to comment due to ongoing legal considerations, or it could indicate a deliberate choice to let the matter unfold without further public escalation. Either possibility points to the likelihood that substantial activity is still occurring behind the scenes, developments the public has not yet been allowed to see. This sustained silence is precisely what makes the situation feel so unfinished. Although the dramatic courtroom moment has already passed and online reactions have exploded in volume, nothing about the story feels resolved or clear. Everything instead carries the sense of anticipation, as though the parties involved are waiting for the right moment to make the next move, issue the next statement, or release the next piece of information that could once again reshape the entire narrative. The unpredictability of the current phase is what keeps audiences so engaged. Right now, observers are not witnessing the conclusion of the story. Why are positioned squarely in its middle, uncertain about how the remaining chapters will unfold. Whatever emerges next, whether additional testimony, documented evidence, or a direct response from those involved, has the potential to reframe everything that has already happened. In that sense, the real question has shifted away from simply asking what she said during the hearing. The more pressing inquiry has become, what haven't we heard yet? The missing elements, whenever they eventually surface, could dramatically alter public understanding of the entire sequence of events. After examining all these layers, the raw courtroom testimony, the subtle reactions, the emerging claims of prior conversations, and the current wall of silence, it is worth stepping back and acknowledging the complexity of the situation. This is not a straightforward story with clear heroes and villains. It is layered, emotionally charged, and still evolving. The lines between truth, perception, and unresolved pain are blurred, leaving room for multiple valid interpretations. With that in mind, it is fair to invite honest reflection. Do you believe King Harris's girlfriend was speaking her unfiltered truth in that courtroom? Or do you think overwhelming emotions overtook the moment and shaped her delivery? Was King Harris in the wrong here? Or is there another side to the story that has not yet been fully presented? And what about T.I.? Do you think he already possessed more knowledge about the underlying issues than he has publicly acknowledged? Or is his silence simply a protective measure aimed at shielding his family during a difficult time? The internet remains sharply divided on these questions, with passionate arguments forming on every side. Some see the girlfriend's breakdown as compelling evidence of genuine hurt and long-ignored grievances. Others view it as an emotional display that cannot substitute for concrete proof and worry that context is being lost in the rush to judgment. Still others focus on the family dynamics, wondering how a father with T.I.'s public profile navigates such deeply personal matters when they spill into the spotlight. Your perspective matters in this ongoing conversation. Sharing thoughts openly can help illuminate angles that might otherwise be overlooked. The diversity of opinions reflects how personally people are connecting with the story, seeing echoes of their own experiences with relationships, family expectations, and the difficulty of communicating pain when the stakes feel high. If breakdowns and detailed examinations of situations like this resonate with you, consider showing support by engaging with the content. The wider these discussions reach, the more thoroughly hidden aspects can be explored and brought into view. There is almost always more beneath the surface than first appearances suggest, especially when high-profile families and private relationships collide with public scrutiny. For those who want to stay informed as the story develops, staying connected ensures access to timely updates without delay. Whenever new information surfaces, whether someone breaks their silence, fresh evidence emerges, or the situation takes another unexpected turn, detailed analysis will follow. The commitment is to real-time coverage that prioritizes context over sensationalism, helping audiences navigate the evolving narrative with clearer understanding. Something about this particular story suggests it is far from reaching its conclusion. The combination of emotional testimony, strategic silence, hints of unrevealed prior conversations, and the lingering possibility of additional evidence creates a fertile ground for continued developments. Each new fragment has the power to shift perceptions once again, reminding everyone that in matters involving real human relationships under public pressure, finality is rarely quick or simple. The current phase feels like a quiet but charged interlude. Behind the absence of new public statements, important conversations, legal considerations, and personal reflections are likely taking place. When the next chapter does unfold, whether through a measured response, the introduction of documentation, or another emotional revelation, it may force a complete reevaluation of everything discussed so far. In the meantime, the silence itself has become part of the story. It invites speculation while simultaneously warning against premature conclusions. It highlights the gap between what is visible to outsiders and what remains private. And it underscores a fundamental truth about situations like this. When strong personalities, deep emotions, and family legacies intersect with legal proceedings, the full picture often takes time to emerge. This unfolding drama serves as a reminder of how quickly private matters can become public spectacles in the age of constant connectivity. It also illustrates the human cost that can accompany life in the spotlight, where every reaction, every pause, and every withheld statement is analyzed, debated, and assigned meaning. For King Harris, his girlfriend, and T.I., the coming weeks and months will likely determine how these events shape their personal relationships and public images moving forward. For those following along, the invitation remains open. Stay engaged, remain thoughtful, and resist the urge to settle on easy answers. The story is still writing itself, and the next development could arrive at any moment. When it does, it may once again transform our understanding of what really happened, why it happened, and what it means for everyone involved. The only certainty at this stage is uncertainty itself. And in that space between what is known and what remains hidden lies the real heart of the matter, a complicated intersection of love, disappointment, loyalty, accountability, and the challenging process of seeking truth, when emotions run high and the eyes of the world are watching closely.